Hello.
Hello, everyone. Are you excited?
So excited. My wife actually asked me if I was nervous. I'm like, no.
Are you nervous, though?
Like, I'm nervous.
Yeah?
Yeah, because we're going to have a big audience.
Sorry, I was going to say, are you nervous for the game or are you nervous for the show?
Like, from a personal perspective, I'm nervous. I'm not nervous about them. They're fine. It's just about me.
It's just about you.
Yeah.
All right. If that's not a sign that everybody watching right now needs to buckle up for this first playoff edition of Check-In, we are pumped. I'm Sara Leski's Jamie Thomas. We're so happy to have so many of you already in the chat and watching as well. This is going to be great as we kick off this postseason, and we are going to get you set for all of it over the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, there's lots to talk about, many storylines that we're going to go over. We've got a tremendous guest list coming up, of course. We'll always hopefully have two guests every time the show comes up, because we know everybody loves hearing us talk all the time. But
I always love hearing JT talk.
Yeah, that's why we bring in guests, to break it up a little bit. Yeah. There they are. There's our guests.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm getting used to this. We have a producer. We've hired somebody. He came in early and everything. Adam's running the show, so our guests are Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press.
And Kenny and Rennie.
Though you can see them after every game, of course. Yep. And then Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic will give us a St. Louis Blues perspective.
Yes, Jeremy's been on with us before. Both cover their respective teams so well. So looking forward to the insight as we set the scene for this best of 7 series. So it should be a great one here today. Let's take a look at what the series schedule is going to be. I've got to tell you, I was a little bit nervous going in. You want nerves?
Yeah.
I was a little bit nervous about what the game times were going to be. I'm not going to lie.
They are all over the place.
Yeah.
All over the place.
But if you notice that through the first 4 games, there was only one 8:30 start.
Yeah.
So I take that as a huge win.
So about 8:45 puck drop.
Yeah, I take that as a win. 5 p.m. today, 6:30 for game 2 here at Canada Life Center. That is a win, JT.
I thought for sure Monday was going to be like 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, so did I.
Labeled. We're like, okay, they're going to give us 5 o'clock because they gave the game one time early.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 o'clock. They're like, well, I know you enjoyed 5 o'clock, but here's 8:30. But instead, they came up with 6:30, which is lovely. So thank you to the National Hockey League and our television partners that agreed to give us a break for game 2.
I am loving it. Okay, so let's talk about the season series quickly before Ken Wiebe's going to join us about 12:40. So let's talk a little bit about what the season series was like between the Blues and the Jets, with Winnipeg winning 3 out of the 4.
Yeah, they won 3 out of 4. And one of the most impressive ones, to me, outside of the 15 shots against performance in the final meeting between these two teams, was the one right after Four Nations face-off. No Connor Hellebuck. They brought in Kyle Connor, played because he had not played in the final. He had 10 shots on goal, scored the shootout winner. So that was, to me, one of the more impressive wins. But these two teams are very close.
Yep.
There's not a lot to decide between the two. You got a great goaltender on both sides. You got a Stanley Cup winner in Jordan Binnington. You got Connor Hellebuck, who's going to win the Vezina Trophy again. And we're going to argue with Ken about if he's going to win the Hart Trophy, but we're not. Just kidding, Kenny. I know you're seeing that. I can see you smiling right now, buddy. But just like there's just so many ways the series can go. It's the Central Division was dominant this year. We figured that was going to be the case. So it's going to be very tightly contested. If you just look back at the regular season series, which we won't talk again after this one because we'll have something to build off of, but they're very close. So
yeah, all of them were essentially, the 3 Jets wins were essentially 1-goal games.
Yeah.
One of them was a 2-goal win that had an empty net goal. And then when St. Louis won their game, it was 4-1. But St. Louis comes into this series with the best record in the league post Four Nations. They were certainly on a heater. We all know about the 12-game win streak that they went on, that the Jets ended. Right. Obviously, the Jets finishing the season with the best record in the league, the President's Trophy. So there's a lot to like about this series. I expect it to be a close, hard-fought one.
Yeah, and then there's all those little storylines with Luke and Braden Chen facing each other for the first time in the playoffs. But I mean, you're trying, the whole conversation continually was, who do you want the Jets to play? Well, anybody that got thrown at them, regardless if they finished first overall, it was going to be a tough opponent. So it was just I thought, if you threw Calgary in this, you got to worry about Dustin Wolf,
right?
Who was outstanding down the stretch. And then one of the main reasons why Calgary was even in the conversation to make the playoffs. And then Minnesota's Minnesota.
Yeah.
They just got Kirill Kaprizov back and Joel Eriksson Ek. So, and then who knows what they're going to do with their goaltending situation with Marc-Andre Fleury. We've seen that face before.
Yes.
Back in 2018. So, glad it's the Blues, because we're just going to have it's just going to be a great opening round series.
Absolutely. So there was no skate this morning for the Jets because about how it is the 5 p.m. start. So no surprise, they did practice yesterday, though. This is what we are expecting the lines to be going into game 1. Now, Scott Arniel will meet with the media here at Canada Life Center at 2:30. But we aren't expecting him to give us any updates if there are changes to the lineup, because everybody is day-to-day really at this point, other than obviously Nikolai Ehlers, who's week to week. But we aren't expecting to see any changes from what we saw at practice yesterday.
Right. Yeah, there wasn't even when Scott Arniel was kind of asked about Gabe Vilardi, who had been skating 2 days previous. If he had even skated yesterday, not sure, but I think he was supposed to skate today.
Yes.
He's getting closer. The important part is he's day-to-day, so you have to wonder how close, what that means. But I think what you're going to have to see is Vilardi's going to have to take part of a practice. He's going to have to take contact and see where it goes from there, and of course get his game shape up to speed real fast.
Okay, so we are giving away tickets today. So we gave away on our last show, we gave away tickets to the Whiteout Street Party for game 1. We are giving away tickets also to game 2's Whiteout Street Party, which you do not want to miss out on. I was looking, we were looking. Temperatures are supposed to be good for game 2 as well, so you don't want to miss out on that. Now, the password for it, the link is in the chat right now. The password for it is going to be playoffs.
Yeah.
So
we went out on a limb on Whiteout for the first one.
We're really stretching.
Yeah. The creative department, the hours of meetings we had.
100%. So that is, so you want to make sure that you enter it and have the opportunity. We will let you know before the end of the show today. And also just before we bring in Ken again, let's talk quickly about some of the biggest storylines that we think there are going into this season. First and foremost, for me, would be that narrative of, can the Winnipeg Jets get past the opening round? Right. Obviously, they haven't been able to do it since they went in 2018. We know the crushing loss last year to Colorado, the way that series went. I think that is going to be one of the biggest, most talked about areas of this series is going to be, can Winnipeg translate their regular season success into postseason? Yeah,
because you just think the last 2 years, you fought hard to get into. It was the second last game of the regular season. They got in. They played Vegas in the opening round. Then they lost pretty much everybody. A lot of injuries. Nikolai Ehlers was touchy. Played only in game 5, so they lose in 5 games to Vegas. Last year, though, expectations got a lot higher. You win the William M. Jennings Trophy as the best defensive team. You wiped out Colorado and Dallas by a combined score of 10-0 in the final 2 regular season games against those 2 teams. You win game 1, and then it was downhill from there. So people are a little hesitant to buy in, but I think that's one of the things we're going to ask Ken here momentarily is just what's different about this team, what feels different.
But last year was last year, as Connor Hellebuck told us.
We've done some great things this year. We don't need to go and look at all the bad things that other people's opinions have on us. I would say let's ask questions about how our details are and how's this team feeling, and what's right and what's going well in this room, and a lot of those questions are answered through our game every single day.
We're done with last year. We're done. It's behind us in the sense of we're not thinking about Colorado and what we should and shouldn't do. We just went through the 82 game of building our brand. Like I said, getting scars, growing calluses, doing all the things that when you get into this moment that you've been through it and that you've been experienced some of these things. And these are all sort of learning curves that we've kind of talked about in October, we've talked about in December, and then, even last week.
And one more before we bring on Ken, talking about learning from the experiences. That's been something that has been discussed often by the Jets players in the last couple of days.
That's what for the science nerds out there, that's what brings it all back together, and that's what makes something that's broken or injured heal. So scar tissue is important. You got to I remember Dale told me this my first year. We were the worst team in the CHL, and he said losing isn't a bad thing. It's something that you get to learn from. You first have to learn how to lose before you get to learn how to win. So I remember that all the time, and those scars are something that make you who you are, and it doesn't kill you, make you stronger.
I think we try to build off of all experiences. I think that's something that our guys have done a good job of, something we've talked about, whether it's as a group or as individuals. Any experience, good or bad, you learn from. So for us, anytime you're in the playoffs, whether it's momentum swings, whether it's in a game or series, all those different things, I think you can learn a lot and take that to help you grow in the future. And it's
All right. Well, we're going to keep lining up storylines throughout this show, but we have had Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press, and of course, known to so many of you from Kenny and Rennie as well, waiting to join us. So why don't we bring him in right now and go and talk a little bit.
Right at 12:42 as promised. Ken.
Hey, how you doing, Kenny?
Very well, guys. Nice to be with you. Fun day.
Make sure
feels
you
like
wear
playoff
comfortable
hockey.
shoes today. Kenny and I always go for a tour, whether it be the concourse or the whiteout party, to make sure that we take in the atmosphere. So I wore comfortable shoes today. Ken, you better as well.
Well done. Well done.
All right, let's get right into it. We heard there Josh Morrissey talking about scar tissue. Same thing with Mark Scheifele. When you look at this Jets team now, how do you think they are different this year going into this playoff series than what we saw last year when they were going into the first round against Colorado?
Yeah, so to me, it's twofold. Mentally, I think they're a little bit stronger than in years past, partly due to that scar tissue that was mentioned and was such a big storyline on the final day of preparations. They have had a lot of heartache and heartbreak, but the path to progress is not always linear, as these guys have seen. We've seen it on other paths for NHL teams, but the other part is they're a tougher team to play against. I think they're better equipped to handle a punch in the face in the playoffs. Sometimes you got to turn the other cheek. Sometimes you need that pushback that we're all familiar with from the Rick Bowness Classic presser after Game 5 in Vegas. So to me, it feels different around the team this year. I think they're more committed to their structure. Their structure's improved greatly, and I don't think they'll abandon that structure if things don't happen to go their way, as we know that there's going to be momentum swings. I like the line Dylan DeMello told me earlier this week, guys. You don't have to make amends for what happened previously. You learn from those mistakes, but I don't feel like this group is carrying this big burden. I mean, don't want to turn this into a Leafs podcast, but this isn't a they haven't won since 1967, and every single player is carrying that with them to the rink. I don't see that for this group, even though this group has grown together through some tough losses. The other part of it too, Sarah, I mean, the Blues are in the same position as the Jets after 2019, one series win each. So, it's hard to win in the playoffs. And I just feel also to the construction of the roster this year, having a guy like Luke Shen to sort of combat some of that net front presence that we're going to see from both teams in the series. Brandon Tanev brings some 2018 vibes, but he also brings that Tasmanian Devil approach that I think will help them. And another player too that wasn't available to the Jets last spring, Morgan Barron. I see him having a massive impact on this series. Big, strong power forward who has really been excelling since moving to the middle on the fourth line.
Ken, of course, you can only win Stanley Cups with your deep rosters and your role players, but you only go as far as your star players. Is this the time that Mark Scheifele takes another step in the postseason, in your opinion?
It has to be, Jamie. I like the way that he handled it. I mean, it's so interesting, right? Mark kind of handled the presser or his avail yesterday the sort of the same way he's handled most of them this year, mostly looking into the ground. But that scar tissue question resonated with him. He perked right up and looked Sean right in the eye. And I love the way that he answered it. And what we know about Mark, when he drives to the rink, he shares a little moment with the Howard Chuck statue on his way into the parking lot. I think that conversation will be revolving around what he talked about on Friday, that learning from losing. And let's not kid ourselves. Mark Scheifele's tired of early exits. There have been too many of them for his liking and many others since 2018. And I think that Mark is the kind of player that can put his fingerprints all over this series. I see him having the impact that he had in 2018 when he had the 14 goals and 20 points in 17 playoff games. I'm not saying he has to put it all on his shoulders. That is not the case. He has plenty of help. And as you mentioned, Jamie, depth has been a cornerstone of this franchise. But Mark needs to be one of the best skaters in this series if the Jets want to advance and go on a long run. And I think that his game is in a position in terms of the two-way portion, but also in terms of the attack mentality required in order for him to be going head-to-head with guys like Robert Thomas, who has 40 points since the Four Nations, like Nathan McKinnon, like Jack Eichel, those type of players. It's something that he's wanted since he entered the league, and I think this is Mark's stage, and he's going to be ready to perform at his highest level on it.
I'm looking forward to seeing, I mean, you mentioned the matchup even with him versus Robert Thomas. I'm looking forward to seeing throughout the series just the way that the matchups work and the different adjustments that each team makes and the coaching staffs. I love that chess match sort of idea of it. Okay, you've mentioned a couple of players, Ken, in your first answer, but give us an X factor in your mind for this series. And you're not allowed to choose 37.
Yeah, that one is a little bit too easy.
That one's too much of a gimme for you.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, saying Adam Lowry's an X factor is also a gimme. This is a guy who's getting Selke attention. Jamie, I know you joked about the heart earlier on, but I mean, in speaking with some of my brethren in the PHWA this week, Adam Lowry is going to be high on a lot of ballots as the top defensive center in the league. So, the fact that Robert Thomas has had a crazy second half, I think, Adam is someone that will be all over the series. But to me, I'm going to be going with Nino Niederreiter in this one, guys. Nino went down a bit of a cold spell down the stretch. I believe it was 1 goal in 23 games. Wasn't moving as well as what we're used to seeing him from when he's been a perennial 20-goal guy. Getting that promotion to the second line here with Nikolai Ehlers being out, I suspect for the entire series, we'll see what week to week means. But I think Niederreiter is a guy that has played well with Vladislav Nemestikov in the past. And I've always wondered what his physical nature and ability to get to the blue paint can do for someone like Cole Perfetti, who I believe will also have a massive impact. But he's not a complimentary guy anymore. Folks, he is a primary point producer on this team. His growth has been incredible down the stretch, but I'm going with Niederreiter. But the plan B to that is also Tanev. I mean, Tanev is a guy who gets a lot done on the penalty kill. He's going to, we saw in the last game, Braden Shen challenged him right away because he bulldozed somebody on a clean hit. So he's the kind of guy that his speed really makes things happen. So those are kind of a twofold or threefold, I guess, situation in terms of X factors. In terms of Blues, I think Jake Neighbors is obviously he's on the first line, but this is a guy who gets to the blue paint like Nino Niederreiter does. He's going to be a guy you're going to have to keep your eyes on here, especially with Dylan Holloway not available for the Blues. Again, I suspect he will not be available this round, but we know what it's like in the playoffs. Healing comes in many forms, so we'll see. We'll see who gets we'll see who gets back when, and on that front. Gabe Velarde, I don't expect him before game 5, 4, maybe if they're lucky with the 2-day breaks. But again, we'll see what day-to-day means. And once, Jamie, you nailed it. Once he gets into a practice with the team in a yellow jersey, then then it's going to be a couple days. But for folks who have been wishing on Easter weekend or that he may show up for game 1, I would use a saying that we used to hear in the room a lot. That's a pump the brakes situation. Don't expect the cavalry in the form of Gabe Velarde before later on in this series.
Fair enough. Kenny, we appreciate the time so much. All eyes are going to be on this series here today with, the first series that kicks off, there's only 2 series going today, but what a lineup it'll be. First with the Jets, Blues, and then when you look at the Avs and Stars. Thanks so much, Kenny. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And JT, you nailed it in the first segment. For print writers, man, only one 850 game in the first 4. That is a absolute blessing on this weekend. Only one hair on fire day, but guaranteed that game's going double overtime. So
100%. And let's be honest. Well, we appreciate the restrictions that you guys and the tight deadlines that writers are on. Nobody wants an 8:30 start. Some of us can just like to go to bed at a reasonable time, whether you have a tight deadline or not. 8:30? No, that's guaranteed. That's the one that's going double overtime.
Yep. Right on, folks. Enjoy the rest of the show and have fun in the playoffs. Enjoy the ride. Should be an interesting Dragon Slayer Tour 2025. The posters will be up everywhere, and we'll see how many sold out shows and how long it lasts. But enjoy it, folks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Kenny.
Ken Wiebe.
Don't forget, as always, after every Winnipeg Jets game, you'll be able to listen to Kenny and Rennie. Always love hearing Sean Reynolds and Ken be able to break down everything afterwards. So everyone across the city can get you set, us with your pregame, and then there's so many great entities that cover this team.
Should we go to Jeremy Rutherford?
Let's bring in Jeremy.
Let's do this. All right, we're rolling here. We've heard a lot about from a Jets perspective, but there is another team in this series, believe it or not. It's called the St. Louis Blues. So we bring in an expert on the very situation. We have some interesting questions lined up for Jeremy. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us. Great stuff on the Athletic and the preparation for the series, and as you always do throughout the regular season. So we're going to kick things off with you. There was a lot made of what changed about the St. Louis Blues out of the Four Nations face-off. So in your opinion, if you could knock it down to a couple or 3 things, what would that be?
First of all, I thought you were going to ask me about Nelly wearing a Jets sweatshirt last night at the
Well, I
concert.
heard he wore a Blues hat as well. So I heard that he was really he was playing it safe. He was just, you know.
He was there last night. Yeah, no, with the Blues since Four Nations, a 77-88 points percentage. It's been quite the story. They were 8 points back, guys, of the Vancouver Canucks for that second wild card when the Four Nations began. What Jim Montgomery did is he kind of had a mini training camp because he didn't get to have a camp coming over from Boston, and the schedule that they had this year, not a lot of time to work on things, but they worked on the forecheck, they worked on the penalty kill. But I would say that the number one thing is this Blues team was a frustrated group coming to the rink every day because they weren't getting the results. So they hit the reset button. You know, a lot of players, they're sitting on a beach somewhere, right? And so these guys came back, and there was just a different vibe. You had the success Jordan Binnington had at the Four Nations. He came back excited, you know, with the things they worked on during the camp. They felt better about the forecheck, and they just started possessing the puck and scoring goals, and they led the league in goals in the last 26 games of the season after Four Nations. So those are the things that kind of came together for the Blues.
All right. In 2019, we know there was so much made about Gloria, the song, and it going around. And there was obviously the great relationship that they had with Layla Anderson, the young girl, and how they really took her into the fold as well. Okay. So what or who, and I think you know where I'm going with this, Jeremy, is the focal point, is the rallying point for the team this year?
It is Joe Boo. Yeah. And I can't believe I just turned 50 a couple weeks ago. I can't believe I'm sitting in a hotel room on a call here talking about a voodoo doll inside the Blues locker room. But it was about right after Four Nations, you know, a couple of us reporters were standing there in the Blues locker room in St. Louis, and we look up and there's Joe Boo, the voodoo doll from the movie Major League, for those who aren't familiar. And we were like, what is going on here? And so you asked a couple players, where did it come from? And obviously everybody wanted to keep the mystery going. So they said they had no idea. But even though Joe Boo is a doll and has his own locker stall, they say that he gives intermission speeches. He's brought the Blues back in a couple games. So it's kind of taken on a life of its own there.
I also Major League.
So that answer's better than I expected. It's just.
And Major League came out in 1989, which I didn't realize how popular.
That's like my prime years.
Well, it's all of our maybe prime years. It's not what I would consider that roster's prime years.
Yeah. I know, it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got this for you. Ken just talked about the Jets X factors. You know, there's some great players in the Blues. Great roster construction as always. Who's a couple of X factors for you in this series for the St. Louis Blues?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. And I know Kenny, by the way, tough assignment coming on after him. Thanks a lot for that. There's a couple of them, but we got to start with the injury. With Dylan Holloway, it's going to be tough to overcome that. I don't expect him in this series, and who knows if we'll see him throughout the postseason if the Blues are fortunate to advance. He kind of was the motor, and he drags people along with him. He's had a great year, as you guys know, after coming over from Edmonton. So don't expect to see him. And in the meantime, in the last 5 or 6 games that they've played without him, they've just tried to re-slot guys. So Kenny mentioned Jake Neighbors. He's a guy definitely first playoff. It'll be exciting to see what he can do. A name to keep in mind, Zach Bolduc. He's going to play on the third line, but he's a rookie who finished with 19 goals. And so if the top 2 lines are having success against each other, matching up, you know, he could be a wild card on the third line who Jets fans might hear from throughout this series. Zach Bolduc, his name. But, you know, other than that, the defense, you know, it's a lot of names that you guys know, veterans, and they just don't make a lot of mistakes. You know, so much experience. Listen to this. I added up the games between the top 6. We're talking with a Ryan Suter who's got 1,500 games, 5,500 some odd games.
Holy my goodness.
Between these 6 guys, including a couple of them who have 1,000 games, and Justin Falk, who's not far off. So just a lot of small, quick plays that help them get out of the zone, and the Blues aren't defending as much as they would be.
I mean, I knew that they were a veteran blue line, and they're a big blue line, but I didn't realize, to be honest, Jeremy, that they were over 5,000 games. I mean, that's incredible when you think of that experience, and something that even when we talk about veteran teams, so rare to see that sort of those sorts of numbers coming out. Yeah,
Fowler 1,000 games, Leddy 1,000, obviously Suter 1,000, and as I mentioned, Falk very close.
My gosh. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate the time. Appreciate you playing with us on the Joe Boo scene. It's a very interesting storyline, and looking forward to talking to you as this series develops. Thanks a lot for your time today, and enjoy the series.
Yeah, we'll see you at the rink, guys. See you later.
Okay, we'll see you in a little
See you,
bit.
Jeremy. Jeremy Rutherford bringing his best.
Yes, absolutely. For those that are watching, that are going to be following along with this series, you definitely want to be reading what Jeremy Rutherford.
Yes.
It's because not only has he covered the Blues forever and does such a great job and is so informative, so to keep you up to date with everything, but also some of the different angles that he finds. I always love being able to read what Jeremy does. So Jeremy, Ken Wiebe, there's so many great writers and so many different formats.
We'll be hearing from a lot of them as the series goes along.
We absolutely will. We are going to give away the tickets momentarily for the Game 2's Whiteout.
Yeah.
But because we weren't able to get into all of the storylines before, this is something that I wanted to play for everybody in case they hadn't seen this. So one of the major storylines also is going to be in net.
Yeah.
So we told Ken that he wasn't able to use Connor Hellebuck as an X factor for it. But you know that Connor Hellebuck versus Jordan Binnington is going to be a storyline that's going in, especially both of them, the starting netminders in the Four Nations in that final game. You know the success that they've had, obviously 2019 going up against each other as well, and they will both be critical if their respective team is to have success. But one of the things, since there is so much attention paid to Connor Hellebuck's numbers in the postseason versus the regular season, I thought this was a really interesting bit from Mike Kelly on the NHL Network earlier.
Numbers like the Winnipeg Jets, guys, 63% favorites to win against the St. Louis Blues. Our most likely projection is in 6 games. So, you know, you mentioned Connor Hellebuck. I think that's going to be such a fascinating element as we go on here in the playoffs and in this series. And one of the things last year that killed him, 10 goals against in 5 games on screen shots. Like, Winnipeg's D's got to get guys out of his way. But that's why I included it on this graphic. So his save percentage is second best in the league this year. On screen shots, this is not a weakness of Connor Hellebuck's. 4th best save percentage when he screened this season. Goals saved above expected. He was number 1 in the NHL by far. He's going to win the Vezina Trophy. So I'm fully confident Connor Hellebuck will be better. I'm confident the team in front of him will be better as well. And the other thing is, you know, St. Louis, like if you believe in regression and things kind of coming back to where they should be, St. Louis, since the Four Nations, has scored more goals than anybody. Their goal probability is kind of middle of the pack. Winnipeg's the opposite, where they should have a lot more goals than they do based on the chances they're creating. So I do think the Winnipeg Jets are going to get this thing done, and our model likes it as well at 60+%.
Hoping that we can have Mike on. He joined us earlier this season, hoping we can have him on during the postseason as well. But just thought it was interesting the way that the angle that he took.
Yeah, and just because that was, and we talked about this before the show, Connor Hellebuck came under a lot of fire last year.
Yep.
There's like some people were just like putting it all on him. I would argue it's the structure that fell apart. And you just heard right there, screenshots. Like Valeri Nichushkin absolutely killed the Jets last year. There are a lot of tip shots as well. So it wasn't particularly all on Connor Hellebuck. And I like how Mike presents that about the goals that he surrendered in that series in the 5 games. So it's a great way to kind of get people to understand how it wasn't just all one person.
Yep, he did say, Hellebuck, when speaking with the media, said it's always a talking point with respect to the number of games that he plays, whether or not he's tired by the time the postseason gets going. It's just talking. I manage myself so well. Now, he also said, our crowd is insane. I think the second we step on the ice, we've got it. If you have been inside Canada Life Center during the postseason, you will know that as loud as it is inside, I mean, to be honest, you can also hear the roar from outside as well, which is pretty special. And we want to send some of you to Game 2's Whiteout Street Party. And
3 winners.
The winners are, you will get 2 tickets to the Whiteout Street Party. Danny Shin, Andre Desarnais, and Lisa Lafleur. Congratulations. We will get in contact with you about emailing out the tickets to you.
Our people are really good at that, at getting back to you in that department. So congratulations to our 3 winners for tickets to the Whiteout outside party, of course, for game number 2, which is an 6:30 start.
Yeah, easy now. Whoa, Cowboy.
Whoa.
Not necessary.
False advertising.
As mentioned, this is the first playoff game that gets going for the 2025.
As it should be.
Well, there you go.
They're the best team. Should
you
lead
go.
with the best team.
And you know what? I love that there's only 2 games that are going on, so all eyes will be on this this series and this game one today. It should be absolutely electric inside and outside the building. There's so much to talk about that we could have easily gone for an hour to run down various storylines, what we think about this matchup in particular going into game one. But we are going to keep it for just half an hour because I know that many of you either want to get going, have some stuff maybe you need to do before you head on down or before you set yourself up ready for tonight's game. But I wanted to ask you, JT, what is one of the things that you are watching for in this game?
I'm watching the second line.
Okay.
Because that's the line that's come under a little bit of criticism heading into this whole thing. The Jets had to add somebody, another centerman for the trade deadline. They did not do that because of the belief they have in Vladislav Domestikov and Cole Perfetti. You heard Ken talk about it, but I just like the construction of that second line. I think they'll be an integral part to what happens here tonight.
I want to see how quickly the Jets can get to the structure. If you remember game one last year against Colorado, it was wild.
That was like 80s hockey. Wild.
To end,
yeah.
Which no coach wanted. I think fans loved the opportunity. It was stressful, but being able to cheer so much. But how quickly they're able to get to their structure for it and stick to it. They want to be the ones to set the tone tonight. Obviously, they had the benefit of last change and everything that goes along with having home ice and the fans as well. One of the things that Adam Lowry said, we're looking forward to the challenge. We're looking forward to everything that goes along with the playoffs, the atmosphere, the emotion, the pressure. I think much like Ken had talked about, you and I have talked about throughout the entire regular season, this is a team that has been very resilient.
Yes.
They have done a good job of sticking to their structure, but when things haven't gone well, there hasn't been the panic. You never feel as if this team is out of it. And so look to see, though, whether or not they can set the tone early on in this series here tonight.
It's going to be a physical series of a lot of grinding nights, but it's going to be a fun one to watch.
It is going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
We cannot wait to go along this entire series and the entire postseason run of the Winnipeg Jets with all of you. We love that so many of you were able to join us today. Same thing that you're active in the chat. We love to see so many of you there as well. And we hope that you will continue and that you will join us for game two.
Yeah, same times, 12:30 start time for us. Looking forward to another impressive guest list for you, that one. And hopefully we're talking about a game one win by the Winnipeg
There you
Jets.
go. We will break it all down. We hope you guys have a fantastic day. Get into your whiteout gear wherever you are watching it. Let's see you all over social media. Let's bring the energy.
Yeah, I think the city's excited. There's a buzz around the city.
There
right
certainly
now.
is.
It was so quiet in Winnipeg yesterday on Good Friday.
There is an anticipation that we didn't see even last year for it. I think people are pumped for this one here. It should be a great one.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody.
And thanks so much to Ken Wiebe, Jeremy Rutherford. Thanks so much to all of you for checking in.
See you, everybody.